As we have just turned the page into a new year, many of us are thinking of ways we can do better and improve in all aspects of life. Let's spend some time today looking at some less conventional ways that we can find to honor God more with the bodies that He's given us, whether we're pregnant or not. These changes are not your conventional resolutions, not the things you're going to hear on every little New Year's podcast, okay? What I've learned this year, or this past year in 2024, has really changed the way that I look at the beautiful way that God has orchestrated our bodies to work. And I want to help you to reshape the way that you view your body to bring glory and honor to Him. This episode is a little longer than usual, but please block off time. If you have to step away, please come back, because all the way through to the end, there is good content for you, good information, and good encouragement for you. And I don't want you to miss any of it. So even though it's a little longer than usual, don't be discouraged by that. You can finish it in more than one part if you have to. Just make sure you listen to the end. Let's go.
Are you a Christian woman yearning for a beautiful, joyful pregnancy and birth with a focus on God, not medical tests? Are you worried the birth you want isn't possible and you're tired of being treated like an accident waiting to happen? Hey mama, I'm Lori, host of Your Birth God's Way. I'm a certified nurse midwife now, but I wasn't always. After working for nearly 20 years in the broken maternity system, I too was in your shoes, wondering how I could have the birth I wanted and that I felt God meant for me to have. I found a secret that has actually been known since the beginning of time. God's way is the best way. Spoiler alert, God made us and our babies, and He knows us best. He designed us perfectly for pregnancy, birth, and nourishing our babies after birth, if we work with His design and not against it. In this podcast, you'll learn how to be healthy and have joy during this time of life that will be over before you know it. So if you're ready to reclaim your birth and your babies for His glory, go turn on a few episodes of Bluey for that little one on your hip so you can put the focus back on you for a few minutes with me.
Review time. Today's review is short and sweet. It says, so refreshing. This podcast is so refreshing. I love hearing about pregnancy, birth, and nutrition from a Christian perspective. God knows what is best, and it's exciting when other people recognize that too. Lori has such a comforting voice, and I always learn something new. Thank you. And thank you to whoever took the time to leave that sweet review and that encouraging review. Again, I say this all the time. I'm so glad you found my voice comforting, because it's not my favorite to hear. I hate listening and doing the editing and everything. Funny story real quick. My son has put a video on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel. And he, the other day, happened to hear it on our TV. It kind of came up in what videos were suggested. And he started listening to it, and he goes, oh my goodness, I can't listen to that. Is that really what I sound like? And I said, yeah, now you know how come as soon as I come up on our TV, I flick it off, or I click it off because I don't want to hear it. Yeah, I'm sure you've experienced that too when you hear the recording of your voice before. It's just one of those things. But I'll get off the topic. Thank you to whomever left this review. It's so encouraging. I'm glad that you find encouragement in this whole podcast. And we're going to talk about this more today. This whole podcast is all about looking to God for what is best, because He's the one that made us. So we should look to Him, and He's the one that made my voice too. So I guess I should get used to it, right? Okay, let's move on. New Year's is a time of new beginnings right in the middle of life. So every single year that you're alive, you get a new beginning. New Year's are a chance to start fresh and look at things a different way. And this podcast normally is mostly about pregnancy-related topics, and that is my overall goal. And if you are pregnant, don't turn this off. It's for you too. It's just that today it's not just for you. It is about pregnancy, but it's for all women, because I know I have a lot of listeners who've already had their babies but still listen, or maybe women who aren't pregnant yet but listen. And today's topic is really going to help anybody who happens to listen, because it's all about honoring the design that God put in us. And He's the one that made us, but we, in our culture, it seems, do everything we can to work against the way He designed us. I can't remember if I shared this on the podcast or not. I think I did. If I did, forgive me. But back in October, a series of events caused me to discover that I'm one of the over 93% of Americans who have metabolic dysfunction. And I actually meet the definition of pre-diabetic. While most of you listening to me right now probably don't know it, the fact that 93% of Americans meet this definition, or at least meet the metabolic dysfunction criteria, that means that just about everybody listening to me right now qualifies. Okay, so this applies to nearly everyone. Figuring this out about myself was eye-opening. It was kind of a fluke the way it all worked out, but God doesn't do flukes, right? He provides. And He showed me what I needed to know through a chain of events to make some real changes in my life that have been life-changing. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. See, from this discovery, I started reading about how God actually designed our metabolism to work. And light bulbs just started coming on all over the place. It all made so much sense. With a bit more research, a continuous glucose monitor that I got, and some simple changes in my life, in my patterns of life, I have improved my sleep. I have removed my quote, my need for coffee in the afternoons, and really even in the mornings, because I drink a different kind of coffee now that has almost no caffeine in it. So it's not even really for the caffeine, it's for the nutrition in it. I've lost 13 pounds. I almost said almost 13 pounds. No, I actually crossed that yesterday. I lost 13 pounds and I just feel better overall. I have less brain fog, less cravings, although I really never had a lot of those anyway. I have no desire for sweets at all. Again, I really didn't have much craving for that anyway, but it's even better now. And that, by the way, is remember I told you to figure this out in October, right? That's with the two big eating holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas was multiple Christmas gatherings, plus a vacation to the beach, and an anniversary getaway all in the middle of it, and I still lost 13 pounds. Might have been more if I didn't have these holidays with all this food in it, right? Now, this podcast is not going to be about weight loss or anything like that. That's not the point. This podcast is about the beauty that comes with putting consideration of God's design back on the front burner instead of it just being an afterthought. And I'm going to challenge you to find new ways to do that too in your life. Because whether you have realized it yet or not, everything about our current life and our current culture in this country, at least, if you're listening in America, works against God's design. Think about it. Just take a minute right now and think about it. Name one thing, just one thing, that is, quote, normal in our culture that really works well with how God set things in order. Can you even come up with one? Because I haven't been able to. I've been thinking about this for a few weeks and it just hasn't come to me yet. If there is something that we do day to day, normally in this culture, that truly works with the way God made us. So, knowing that, we're going to have to find ways to be even more countercultural because we want to give honor to God. We want to give glory to God in our bodies. So, we're going to have to do some hard things to break from these cultural norms to honor Him. Okay, we're kind of used to that in spiritual things, but I think that we have bought into this idea that physical stuff doesn't count. But it does, because He made us and He gave us a physical body. He didn't just make us a spiritual being, He made us a physical being. And for us to just say, oh, physical stuff doesn't count, I can do whatever because this body's going to die anyway, well, that doesn't give Him honor. That doesn't give Him glory. It's like you've just made your body that He gave you into something just to throw away and to waste. See, when we take good care of ourselves, we can be here feeling well longer to do His will longer, to bring more people to Him longer and be more effective in His kingdom. But if we trash our bodies and we don't work with His design, we're going to feel bad while we're here and we're not going to be here as long. So let's look at some things. I want to challenge you. This challenge starts here, okay? I want to start with just a little bit of a quick overview over metabolism. Just explain it to you very, very, very briefly. We're not going into like some kind of a science class. I just want you to understand this before I give you the challenges I have for you, okay? When you eat food that it breaks down into sugar, no matter what the type of, what the macronutrient is, it does break down to sugar eventually. It's just how fast and how efficiently and how the process happens, basically. Okay? There are some foods you eat that very fast go to sugar and they shoot your blood sugar up. There are some foods that very slowly go to sugar and they don't shoot your blood sugar up. When you eat food that breaks down into sugar, and that sugar is digested and hits your bloodstream, it sends a signal to your pancreas to release insulin. Think of insulin as like the vehicle that takes the sugar out of your bloodstream and takes it into your cells. And remember, your whole body is cells. Everything that makes you up is cells, okay? So insulin is taking the energy, the glucose, into every cell in your body, okay? That's normal, that's good. Small amounts of glucose and small amounts of insulin that are proportional to each other are fine. That's how God designed us to work. Okay? The problem comes in our diets that have an impact on our insulin staying high. Why is that? Because so much of our food, nearly all of the food that you buy that didn't come straight from the ground, has things either processed in it or added to it that then cause your sugar to go higher. And when we're eating these things consistently, our sugar is going higher consistently. It is sending a signal to our pancreas consistently to give us more and more insulin. Okay? Insulin over time, when it's that high, your cells become resistant to it because they're seeing it all the time, and they stop reacting to it the same way. And so more and more and more insulin is needed because that blood sugar level is staying high. So it's continuing to send that response or that signal to your pancreas to keep making more insulin. Okay. And over time, that insulin doesn't all go away between meals. Because see, when you were in between meals, when you were fasting, you really shouldn't have any insulin in your bloodstream. The insulin should be gone because there's no signal for it anymore and it has no job anymore. But when we have these high insulin levels from what we're eating, the processed food, the added sugars, and all these things, and we're eating them all the time, that signal for that insulin keeps that level high to where when you're no longer eating, the insulin is still there. This is why a fasting insulin level will be high long before the glucose level will show high. And that's one of the big problems with our medical system is to test for diabetes. They look at your fasting glucose. Your fasting glucose is not going to go up for maybe 10 or 15 years down the road because your insulin will keep up by making more and more and more and more and more insulin until it can't anymore. And then your sugar finally bumps, but you've had 10 or 15 years of metabolic dysfunction. You didn't even know it because they don't look at the right lab. Okay? I hope this is making sense because insulin, while it is a vehicle that takes the sugar into the cells, it is also a fat storing hormone. So you can see that when you have extra insulin all the time, suddenly you're packing on the pounds and you don't know why. You're not eating that much, but you're packing on the pounds because all of these years, what you've been eating that maybe wasn't awful, but maybe wasn't as good as it could have been, has been causing your sugar levels to stay high, and you didn't know it because you weren't looking at it because we don't do that normally. And then our insulin levels are high, and then our fat storage starts. After this being in place, about 10, 15 years, you finally hit that level where you're pre-diabetic like I was, but really it's been in place for a long time. You just didn't know it. And now your doctor says, oh, you better do something. You better do something or you're going to become a type 2 diabetic. The only difference between a pre-diabetic and a type 2 diabetic is your fasting blood sugar. That's it. That's the definition. It's based on your fasting blood sugar. So why not do things now before you maybe even know you have a problem to start reversing this process to work with God's design so that your insulin levels don't have to go so high all the time, so that your insulin can do its job, so it can feed your cells well and give them the energy they need. See, whether you realize it or not, our diets are doing this to us, and they have been for many years. So let's talk about some ways that we can reverse this for the 93% of you, 93% of you who are already there, whether you know it or not. And let's find ways to avoid it for the 7% who are not there yet. And while sometimes when I'm explaining stuff, it makes sense to me, and maybe it doesn't completely come out clearly, I'm going to give you a great resource at the end that I want you to get, and I want you to read, because I want you to learn all about this, because this is not hard to change. I have changed it in just 3 months, 2.5 months. And I have completely made so many changes. I can see so many changes. Let me say, I haven't made so many changes. I can see so many changes in my body. I thought the pounds were never going to go away. I'd never lost the baby weight. And I thought that was just, normal. I'm older. I'm in my 40s now. It's just the way it's going to be. No, it's not. What I didn't know was hurting me. Okay? And what you don't know might be hurting you. And what you learn today, I hope, will prompt you to learn more and see if this is a problem for you and start making the changes so you can have the changes that I've had. Okay? First challenge. This is the food challenge. I challenge you to only feed your body what will give your cells the energy they need. What's that going to be? It's going to be the foods that God created. Only feed your body the foods that God created. If the food you are considering was made in a factory, skip it. And when you choose which of the foods that God made for us to eat, I want you to put a greater focus on the things that are going to help build and repair your body, like protein. Because see, God made your body to continually replenish itself and continually heal itself and to replace cells as they get older and put new things in place. And so when you give your body good quality protein, your body can remain healthy. I want you to consider that the amount of added sugar that is needed in your diet is zero. Literally zero. There should be no added sugar. This palate that we've developed to where we need everything to be sweet, that's just a marketing ploy. That is research that has gone into making things more addictive for you, so you'll eat more of it. You don't need that sweetness. And when you break yourself from those cravings by doing some of these things that I'm going to talk about, and then also doing more of what's in the book I'm going to tell you about, you won't have those cravings anymore. It's amazing how quickly the cells in your metabolism and the cells on your tongue and the things that you want turn over to where your taste completely changes. What you want completely changes pretty fast, actually. Consider this. Fruits give you nutrition. Yes, fruit is good. But too much fruit, especially certain types of fruit, like things like berries, they give you lots of antioxidants, but they also give you a lot of fructose, which is a sugar. And that sugar breaks down quickly, which breaks down leads to, again, you needing more insulin. So when you eat lots of those things, thinking you're eating healthy, you're shooting your blood sugar up, even if it is off of a healthy food. So you need to eat it in moderation or with protein to balance it so that it slows down the digestion of it. Additionally, something very interesting that I learned is that fructose is a sugar that is made to help animals, bears specifically, pack on the pounds to be ready for the winter. So when we're eating things either like the fruit that has all the fructose in it or the things that have the high fructose corn syrup in them, see, they've studied fructose. They know what it does. Fructose not only packs on those pounds, it makes you want more and more and more. So they studied it, they simplified it, they made it even more addictive to make you want more and more and more. So they put high fructose corn syrup in everything. So you want more and more and more. But what are you doing? You're packing on the pounds because your body thinks that you're always preparing for the winter. But winter never comes because you just keep on packing on the pounds. Okay? You see where I'm going with this? Fruit is good, don't get me wrong, but it's in balance with the other foods that are going to help your body break it down slowly, get the nutrition out of it without spiking up your blood sugar. See, when you start to creep into the area of needing more insulin, no matter what causes you to need that insulin, then those insulin levels again stay high even when you're fasting, and that fat storage starts or continues. Are you feeling, I know I can't be alone in this. Have you felt like that it doesn't matter what you do, what you eat, you can't lose weight, you just gain weight? Maybe you haven't changed anything about your diet and you're in your late 30s, early 40s, maybe even into your 50s, and you're like, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to gain weight. Have you felt like that? See, very, very shortly before I figured all this stuff out, I remember telling my husband, I haven't changed anything about my diet. Why am I gaining weight? And I just kind of felt helpless in it. And that's the beauty of how God has worked all this out, because now I see that what was causing it was this insulin resistance that I have. And now that I'm working on that, it's reversing, and it's reversing fast, y'all. I'm almost down to where I was before I had my first baby. And I didn't think I was ever going to get back there. I'd already kind of conceded to the fact that, this is just the new me. And yet now in my 40s, I'm almost finally back to pre-pregnant weight from this one discovery. I was there. I was where you are. I was eating less overall, but I was gaining weight and I didn't know why. I didn't eat sugar. I don't ever eat candy. I don't really eat dessert. I didn't eat one dessert over all of the holidays because I didn't want it. Not because I couldn't have it, because I didn't want it. I wasn't eating processed foods, but none of that mattered for me because I was resistant to the insulin that was being made when anything, the simplest of things, was spiking my blood sugar. Things that might not spike your blood sugar were spiking mine and I didn't know it. And so my sugar was high and my insulin was high. And I was to the point that when I figured this out, my fasting glucose was already high. So that means I'm 10, 15 years into this process. I got a lot of work to do. Even my bread. Y'all have heard me talk about my bread, and I still stand by that. It is very healthy and it's very nutritious, but my bread spikes my blood sugar the way I've been making it. Now I'm learning how to do things like sourdough and all that because it seems to be, for most people, it doesn't spike their sugar as much to still do it with fresh milled flour. But for right now, I'm going to tell you in a minute how I am still able to have my bread. Stand by. I'm going to tell you that because I do still think that if you're going to eat bread, that fresh milled flour is the best way to do it. But for me, it did cause that blood sugar spike, and that led to the insulin being high, which is a fat storing hormone, which was leading me not being able to lose weight, among other things. But again, don't despair. I'm going to tell you in a minute how you can still have these healthful foods, even if they do potentially spike your sugar, without the spike. We're going to talk about it. Hang in there with me. Because see, another thing that does that for me is raw milk. Y'all know I love raw milk. I believe in raw milk, and that hasn't changed. But there are carbs in it. And so I have learned that that is one of the things that spikes my sugar. Again, I'm going to tell you how I deal with that in just a minute. But see, when you only eat real foods that God created, you're going to and you get them from the sources that have grown them responsibly, they are going to ultimately build you up. But in my case, I had approximately 35 years or so of eating poorly that had already set the stage for me to become pre-diabetic. And those 35 years are my entire life up to when I was pregnant with my last baby, which was 7.5 years ago, almost 8 years ago. Okay. All of those years of eating whatever, lots of fast food, lots of just whatever you get at the store. Those had set the stage for this. It wasn't an overnight process, and it's not going to be an overnight fix. So some of those foods cause me problems now that might not cause most people problems. But there's other things that can be done. Okay. Again, I'm going to tell you that in a second, but for now, let's focus on my challenge to you, which is only eat foods that are going to feed your cells well, that come from food God designed you to eat. If it comes out of a factory, don't eat it. If a man made it, and when I say when a man made it, I don't mean like a man cooked it and prepared it for you. I mean, if it is something that was created in a lab or created in a factory, comes in a box with plastic around it, let's avoid it because that's not real food. It's going to have something processed out of or into it. Okay? Now, second challenge. This is an activity challenge. I don't mean like a worksheet activity. I mean like moving your body, because God designed our bodies to move. Our bodies, our bones, everything, our muscles are healthier and stronger when we are not spending our lives on our tushes. Okay, let's just get real. God created Adam and Eve and he put them in a garden. A garden is outside. He didn't create a house or a building or a cabin and sit them into it. He didn't create indoor plumbing and electricity to make it all comfy and cozy for them. He put them in a garden. That implies they were outside. They were under the sun. They were moving around. They were working the garden and working the earth to be able to grow their food. Now, before you start with yeah, but that was before the fall. I know that. I know. But that doesn't change the conditions that he created them to be in. Now, do I think that it's simple to be indoors or wrong to be indoors? Well, of course not. Right now, as I record this, it's raining and it's about 40 degrees outside. I certainly am glad that we have indoor shelter, and I think it's likely that Adam probably came up with some kind of shelter after the fall. But this is not the theology of buildings or the theology of why Adam was where he was. I don't even think that's a thing, but that's not what this is. This is about thinking about the wisdom of God's design and where he put man and woman when he created them. He didn't make us to be sedentary, sitting on our rears as much as we do in this culture, and you know it. You may not have thought about it, but you know it. We eat far too much, and we get far too little activity in this culture. So the challenge is, I want you to increase the steps you're taking every day. I want you to increase your steps to somewhere between 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day. That one change, especially if you've been sedentary, will make a huge difference in your fitness, in your health, and maybe in your weight. You can track this using like an old school pedometer. You can get an activity tracking watch. There's cheap ones, there's expensive ones, or you can even get an Oura Ring. I have one of those now. It's you can see it if you're watching on YouTube. I got it for Christmas, and I'll put the links to some of these options in the description. There's all kinds of price points and ways you can do this that are very simple. But more than just getting activity, okay, I want you to be mindful about when you get your activity. See, as I mentioned, I was going to tell you how I manage to still get the nutrition from the bread and from the milk without my sugar going up. When you eat, your blood sugar is usually going to go up some. If you're metabolically healthy, it's not going to go up very high. If you have metabolic dysfunction, it may go up really high for something that you really don't think should do it. I have a friend who found out that a handful of chips shot her blood sugar up over 190 points. Not 190 additional points, but up over 190 because of what she's learned from the pilot program she's doing with me, which I'll tell you a little bit more about at the end. She never would have guessed that. It was a simple, small little snack, and her blood sugar went nuts, okay? But anything you eat, it's going to go up some. So one way that you can keep your blood sugar lower, which will lead to you needing less insulin, so your pancreas has to make less insulin or release less insulin, is to take a walk after a meal, even if it's just 15 minutes. I have been amazed at how my blood sugar lowers for, the most like lazy, just strolling of walks. For example, I think it was after Thanksgiving, I think it was Christmas, at my mom's house. I was very careful about what I ate. I ate a lot of protein, but my sugar started to go up. And I went out and it was the slowest, most non-exercise like walk you've ever seen. And my blood sugar instantly started coming back down. It's just the activity. Because see, when your muscles contract, they pull not insulin, they pull in sugar, glucose, without insulin. And so that's a workaround when your cells are insulin resistant. If you will incorporate exercise to where you are contracting your muscles, they will start to pull that glucose in without insulin. So your sugar doesn't go up as high. So that signal isn't sent to your pancreas to make more insulin, thereby causing this snowball effect. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does, because I can't see you answering. If it doesn't, shoot me an email. I'll try to help you. See, I believe the biggest reason that I've lost weight, other than cutting back on carbs and increasing protein, is because of that change. I have started to put my walking right after I eat anything that I think is going to shoot my glucose up. I'm sorry I keep getting those words mixed up. They all kind of get mixed up in my head sometimes. See, I still want to get the nutrition that I know I'm getting from my fresh meal bread, and I know I want to get the nutrition from the raw milk, but I also know that they're going to spike my blood sugar. So I always combine them with protein. Most mornings, I eat several scrambled eggs, and I have a piece of bread and a big glass of milk, And then I do my morning walk right after that, and my sugar doesn't go high. And how, by the way, how do I know what my sugar's doing? Because I now have a continuous glucose monitor, which you can get without a prescription. If you need help getting one, I can help you get one, but I'll put a link down in the description. You can get one all on your own. But I can see in real time what's happening to my sugar without having to prick my finger all the time and all of that. So I get my steps in, my sugar doesn't go up, I get a bunch of protein early in my day, and that brings me to the next challenge. Okay, because that was the activity challenge. But you heard me mention I get a lot of protein early in my day. I challenge you, and this one's hard in the wintertime, I know. I challenge you to live your life in the daytime. Let's go back again to God's design. Okay? He gave us the sun to rule the day. And he didn't give us electricity to light up all hours of the day or the night in our house. He allowed that to be invented, yes, but it wasn't how we were made. This is hard for me. I am a night owl. This is so hard. But our ability to use artificial light at any hour of the day is destroying our normal circadian rhythms and our sleep-wake cycles. And when we eat and what we eat when, and people are eating later and later. So when you go to bed, when your body should be cleaning up, that insulin should be gone and you should be burning through fat stores and different things in your liver and different places in your body can't do that because it's still digesting the food that you ate too late in the day. But when you bump things earlier, like I've started to do by having the things early and then doing the walk after and all those kind of things, those things reset your circadian rhythms. So what's the challenge here? The challenge here is to go outside and get sunshine, or at least daylight if there's no sun out, if it's cloudy or whatever, on your skin and in your eyes within 30 minutes of getting up. And start moving your breakfast, if possible, within 30 minutes of getting up, and make it high, good quality protein. Okay? Those things are going to help to reset your circadian rhythms by your brain perceiving that sun first thing in the morning. Your brain's going to reset when it expects to start getting sleepy at night so you can get in bed at a decent hour so you can get good, restful, restorative sleep and improve your health and your metabolism overall. Because if you're not getting enough restful sleep, all the other things you do aren't going to have nearly as much impact because your insulin and your glucose are all related. On a day after you haven't gotten good sleep, your glucose levels are usually going to be higher, believe it or not. It's all intertwined. So I want you to think about your rhythms in your day, ways that you can get natural light directly on your eyes and on your skin. And I'm not saying sit out and burn. I'm saying that God made us to be in the sun. The sun activates vitamin D in our skin. The sun sets our circadian rhythms in our brains. There's so much good that the sun does, and I want you to stop being scared of it. Seriously, okay? And I want you to get light on you directly first thing in the morning. And then I want you to get your breakfast with lots of protein in it first thing in the morning. Even if you do intermittent fasting, I want you to consider flipping your fasting to where your fasting isn't in the morning, it's at the end of the day, so that your body has that time to clean everything up while you're sleeping. Okay? So my challenges are: only eat real food that's going to feed your cells well. Get 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day and work on resetting your circadian rhythm so you can get good quality restorative sleep and get your rhythm set based on when God designed us to be awake, which is during the day. Yes, wintertime is hard because the daylight hours are so short, but even doing things like dimming your lights as the day gets on towards the evening hours, as the sun's going down, dimming your lights to where they're not quite so bright, getting away from the screens, getting away from the phones and all those things late in the day. All of those things are going to help your body be able to rest well, because so many people are struggling with sleep problems, and these changes alone could be the difference between a good night's sleep and not enough sleep. All right, that's a lot, but I really want you to digest this and I want you to get even more information. And so I'm going to challenge you just a bit further. These are only 3 points. There are more that you really need to work on to optimize your metabolic health. This is a good starting point. These 3 things are a really good starting point. But I'm currently building a program for this that's got all the points in it that you need. And I would love to have you join when it's ready. So if this is all kind of like really resonating with you and you're like, yeah, I need more of this. This sounds like probably what my problem is. And I need just a little guidance, a little help, a little accountability, a little mentorship. I want you to go ahead and get signed up so that you'll hear when it is in place. Okay. So to get on that email list, just go over to go.yourbirthgodsway.com/your health. Just type that in, get signed up. It'll put you on a list. And that way, when I get it all ready to go, you'll be the first to know. Second, that program's not ready yet. Okay. While I wish it was, I'm only one person. There's only so much time in the day. I can't do it all. And I don't have it quite ready yet. And I don't want you to put off your health until I get a program ready. I don't. I want you to start this now. So I want you to embrace God's beautiful design for your body right now. And to do that, I want you to go get a book called Good Energy. I'm going to put the link down in the description. You don't have to figure out which one's the right one or anything. This book is not in any way written from a Christian worldview. Okay, so don't think I'm recommending this for some theological truth. It's not for that. But what it is a book that will help you to see the beauty that God put in your body, despite the author not calling it what it is. Okay, it's just another instance of the whole calling it nature thing when it's really God. You hear that a lot, right? You don't go into this book looking for your theology. You go into this book looking for more about how the body works, which will give you more of an appreciation for our beautiful, wonderful designer, who is God. See, the author of this book was a surgeon, but she quit being a surgeon because she wasn't making anybody better, and she realized that. And so she went to start looking for what the real problem was, and she found that every chronic disease, nearly every chronic disease, all ties back to this metabolic dysfunction. Okay? And so by fixing this, there's no telling what you're going to fix in your life, what chronic condition you're dealing with that you're going to get rid of, what pills that you're taking right now you might not have to take. Okay. The learning that I did through reading this book is what started me on this path. And the connections I've made with how God made our bodies is the root of the program that I'm building. So if you read this book, you'll have a lot of the information that you're going to need to jump into a new way of living that is synchronous with how God made us, not at odds with, but synchronous with how God made us. Okay. This program is for all women, pregnant or not. So I hope you'll take this challenge and that you will join me. God's women should be the healthiest women, but I don't see that being the case right now. Not at all. I see God's women struggling with sickness and many of them making a God out of the medical system. Y'all, let's not idolize that which is not God. He has given us all we need for life and godliness, so let's embrace that. And my final challenge, which really should have been my first challenge, I challenge you, and I don't know why I didn't put this first. Forgive me, because I know some of you've probably dropped off by now, but I hope you came back and hear this. I challenge you because physical things, they do benefit some, but our spiritual side is what is going to live forever one way or another, right? I challenge you to read your Bible through this year. It's only the 7th. You can easily catch up if you haven't already started. There are tons of plans. You can read it straight through, Genesis to Revelation. You can read it in chronological order, find a plan that lays it out that way. You can do a little bit of Old Testament every day, a little bit of New Testament every day. You can do it audio. You can do real reading. There's so many ways to do it. I'm personally this year, I'm going to mainly use the YouVersion audio Bible to listen to a chronological plan through the year. That's how I really like to read it, is chronologically, because it just flows and it just makes sense. And I'm going to do that audio while I'm doing my morning walks. And then my Bible time in the house, I'm going to continue working through my Digging Deep study, which is a year-long study that runs September through August. And I'm also going to do a scripture writing study. I'll put links to that also in the show notes in case you're interested in learning more about that, or you can shoot me an email if you have questions. Because those are both really good studies, really good ways to study, but those are separate and apart from reading the Bible through. I challenge you to do that, because no matter what study you use, you need to be in the Word. And that is the only way to stay grounded in God's truth and to not get pulled aside by false teaching. The only way is to know the word yourself and study it yourself. And when you read the Bible through, you catch things that you may not have even realized were there. Okay, so make that challenge number 1. Read the Bible through this year. Then the food challenge, activity challenge, the getting your circadian rhythms straight challenge. All of these things together are going to build a better you to be able to work even better for God. So now that I've challenged you, now that I've pushed you, I challenge you to join me back here next week, because it's going to get dicey next week, y'all. I'm not going to tell you why, but seriously, make sure you join me then. You're going to enjoy it. I'll see you next week.
Real quick, if today's episode blessed you in any way, would you head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a quick 5-star written review? It'll take you less than a minute, but it's the best thank you you can give me, and it will help my show to reach more mamas just like you, so we can all find God's best for our families. I'll see you right back here in a few days.